Hey guys, Toby here, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not you can write off your business clothing, and if you can also write off dry cleaning. All these things revolving around, let's just say, the suit you have to wear, or whatever it is that you have to wear for your business. And I'm going to go over the actual case law, and I'll go over some of the cases, and then I'll give you some scenarios. So by the time we are done, you're going to have a very good knowledge of what the actual rules are, because there's so much garbage out there on TikTok and Instagram, and all these folks are out there spewing stuff that's going to get you. Not only is it illegal, it's just going to get you in sort of all sorts of hot water. So let's talk about this. Let's just say this suit here. When is this suit that I am wearing deductible? Well, let's take a look at the law on it. The first area we look at is Section 162, which is where all ordinary and necessary expenses to in carrying on a trade or business are deductible. It's custom, ordinary, reasonable, necessary. Just think about that for a second. So all these guys that are out there saying, "Oh, I can write up my suit. All I got to do is say it's for my business," or "Hey, I'm an influencer and I got to have nice clothing on," does not work that way. And the reason it doesn't work that way is because there's another provision, 262, that knocks out personal expenses. I'm going to go to the regs on this because it's very, very direct. And regs are law, they're interpretation that are enforceable of the law. So let's just go to this. The cost of clothing that is suitable for general or personal wear is a non-deductible personal expense, even if it is required as a condition of employment. So let's just, again, even if you're a TV anchor and you have to wear a suit, if you could use it for personal wear, you're not going to get to write it off. So even if your employer or profession requires a suit, it's not deductible if it's suitable for general wear. And I'll go over the actual case law because, of course, there's always provisions, and then people have to go and try it in court, or they don't want to listen. They're writing everything off, and there's a bunch of them. I'm going to go back in time into the 50s where we have one of the first cases, and it's Yeomans versus Commissioner. I may have butchered the name, but this was an interesting case where the person represented a shoe company, and it was a lady that would go out and do kind of like fashion shows, and that's how they sold their shoes, and they were high fashion. So think of when you think of people, walking the runway. She was actually conducting these elaborate events to sell shoes, and she wore specific types of high fashion that you wouldn't wear other places. And so she would buy things that, again, imagine that you're going to Prada or to Gucci's annual thing, or Hermes or any of these, and they have some pretty funky outfits, right? Stuff that you're not going to see in the store, but they're to elaborate and make a point. This lady was wearing them. And that's what she was wearing to her work. And that was a condition because they needed to be the fashion expert. And so basically, she was wearing specific items that were not suitable for her personal and private wear. And the court came up with a test. And it said, one, the clothing, in order to be deductible, the clothing is of a type specifically required as a condition of your employment. So this is something you have to have for this type of employment, and it is not adaptable to general use as ordinary clothing. That's number two. So you can't use it outside of work, and you didn't wear it outside of work. Now this rule has since been massaged a little bit because that's called a subjective test. Did you wear those clothing outside of work? And she had some of it where she did and some of it where she didn't. She was able to write off certain items and other items she couldn't. But this is where the test comes from, right? And now we also have it in the regs, but we also have it in cases. And it gives us kind of the factual, how are the courts going to treat it so that you can navigate these things. So then we have additional cases. And this is where we actually had an anchor man, right? This is somebody on the news every night. And he was writing off things like his haircuts and everything, saying, I have to look the part and I have to have a nice suit, right? And the court held, hey, the cost of your business wardrobe, even if it's required as a condition of your employment, is generally a non-deductible personal expense. under Section 262. Whoops. So this is going all the way back to 1980. So we have a case from the 50s and the 80s. The general rule is that where business clothing is suitable for general wear, in other words, you could wear it outside of your work, a deduction for that item is not allowed, even if the taxpayer would not have purchased them but for the employment. So like this guy was saying, hey, I'm a news anchor, I got to have some nice suits. I would not normally buy this except for the fact that I'm on the news. And the court again did their three-part test for deductibility, and it is basically, it's is the clothing required? Okay, maybe we have a check for that. The clothing is not suitable for general personal wear. We do not meet that, and the clothing is not so worn. So in this case, again, they're looking at an objective. Could you have worn it? So it, this is a pretty bright line test. Like there's not much, like all these folks that are out there on the internet saying, hey, if you're going to be an influencer, you could say I have to have nice clothing and therefore I'm doing this. Da 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 da. Nope. If you could wear it outside of being an influencer, in other words, if you're going to wear that anywhere else, sorry, you're not going to get to write it off. So then we get a little farther down the road, and we have something that's a little more interesting for me. It's Romana v. Commissioner. Not too many people cite to it. It was a husband and wife that were writing off a whole bunch of stuff, including in both of those, the newscaster case, they're trying to write off dry cleaning. In this case, they're writing off all sorts of the cleaning of these clothing, which we'll get to in a second when you can write that off. But in this particular case, Miss Romana, she worked in a plastic surgery center, and she wore a white lab coat with the surgical center name on it and scrubs. Could you wear that outside of work? I mean, you could, but is it customarily worn? No. And in this particular case, it was an unreimbursed business expense, employment or employee expense. You can't write these things off anymore, by the way, because miscellaneous itemized deductions were eliminated under the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act and under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that just passed. These are gone, miscellaneous itemized deductions. But back then you could, but you had to meet Section 162. In other words, it was an unreimbursed business expense. So the surgical center did not reimburse Miss Romana. And so she wanted to write it off personally and write off the dry cleaning and everything. And again, three-part test. The clothing is a type specifically required as a condition of employment. So you're working at a surgical center. I want you to look like a medical professional. I want you to look like everybody's wearing scrubs or you're wearing the white lab coat. It's not adaptable to general use as ordinary clothing. Is that ordinary clothing walking around in scrubs in a lab suit, or is that specific to a surgical center? It's specific to a surgical center. The court said, hey, this is not something you're normally wearing, and it is not so worn. So she didn't go out and wear it outside. So they were not ordinarily worn outside of work. So it is deductible. So she got to write off what she could prove that she spent on just those items. So like her tennis shoes and things like that, can't deduct. The scrubs, she can write off. The white lab coat, she can write off. What if she was wearing a blouse underneath it? Nope, can't write that off, right? It has to be that specific piece of clothing. Now, we get to the high fashion. We get to the one where, now you're going to start screaming at me. And this is Yves Saint Laurent. And the managers at the store, and this is Pevsner versus Commissioner, also in the 80s, and they have to wear that fashion designer. This is like if you work at a specific brand and they want you to wear that brand's clothing. And so the store manager had to wear nice clothing from Yves Saint Laurent. And the court said, remember the test. Could you wear it outside? Heck yeah. Right? So they said not deductible. Even though she wore the clothes for work, they were still suitable for general wear. And they didn't even care whether she actually wore it outside of work or not. It was a objective standard. So it kind of moved around. Would a normal person wear those clothing? So again, we could just kind of go through this. If you were working in a carnival and you had to wear a clown suit, objectively, could you wear that outside? We don't even care whether you did it or not. Maybe you decided you'd want to wear a clown suit all over the place. They just say, is it the type of attire that you would normally wear? No, that is specifically for the circus or whatever you're doing. So, what is deductible? Here's your test. It is not suitable for everyday use. So, think of our clown, the clown costume. Maybe you're having to wear a hazmat suit, firefighter gear, uniforms, or things like that. Number two, it's required as a condition of your employment. So this is a no-brainer if you're a police officer, firefighter, or you're an ambulance worker working in a hospital, things like that. Hey, these are things that you have to wear. Those things become deductible to your business or to that business. So again, if they don't reimburse you for it and they make you buy it, you got a problem because you can't write it off as miscellaneous itemized deduction. But if you have your own business, you can absolutely buy uniforms and safety gear. Like if you're working construction, steel toe boots and things like that. Yeah, you could write that off because it's necessary for the type of work you're doing. If in fact you're doing things like construction stuff where, yeah, you got to wear steel toe boots. All right, I'm writing that off. What I can't write off is my Levi's, right, that I could wear outside of the work. And then it is not worn outside of work. So this is kind of a, hey, if you're wearing it around, then you're going to hurt yourself, right? You could lose this. So custom uniforms, costumes only work, only that you're using on the job. So that's when it's deductible. So again, scrubs in the hospital, steel toe boots if you're construction, stage performers. There's a case where a violinist, I believe it was, and I'm just kind of going off of rote memory. I think it was like a sequin top that was for the performance. It's over the top. You're not wearing something like this in general. You could write that off. But everything else, like, let's say you had to wear black slacks and some other things, can't write off. Only the specific articles of clothing that are not adaptable to outside personal use. They're not susceptible. Now, and we will get to advertising here in a second. It's not what you guys think it is. The bottom line is if you're, an influencer, a lawyer, an executive, TV anchor, right? And you're wearing expensive suits or really nice clothing because you feel like you have to impress, it's not deductible. If you can wear it personal, then it destroys the deductibility of it. Even if you say it's ordinary and necessary, if it can be used for personal use, it makes it non-deductible. And then that takes us to the next step. What about dry cleaning? I got all these nice suits and I got to clean them. Man, it's expensive. All right. Dry cleaning is not deductible unless it's going to be deductible as a business expense. So it has to be specialized non-personal work clothing. So again, if you're doing the scrubs, you take that to the dry cleaner if you want to, or to the laundromat and get them cleaned. But there is another way to write off dry cleaning, and that is if you are traveling. But we're going to go back down to section 162 and 262 in the regs, and Treasury Regulations 1-62- I think it's 1B8 or something along those lines. The cost of maintaining clothing that is suitable for general or personal wear is a non-deductible personal expense. You can't make it clear. This is law, right? This isn't up for interpretation. So if you're dry cleaning your business suits and everyday clothes, it's not deductible, even if it's worn exclusively for work. So let's go back to our newscaster, anchor person. The haircut's not deductible. The suit's not deductible. When he cleans the suit, it's not deductible. That's why he gets the big bucks, right? But if you're out there and you think, hey, if I get these things, I'm going to write them off through my business, it does not work that way. But when can I write off something like I gave you when you can write off your clothing? When can I write off my dry cleaning? What if I am traveling? What if I'm going to a conference? Then even if the clothing itself is not deductible, so it's suitable for everyday use, even if the cleaning of the clothing is necessary cost of using it in your trade or business. So if you are traveling, and this is under IRS, it's publication 463, That's travel, gift, and car expenses all in one big old publication, right? You can deduct the cost of your dry cleaning while on a business trip that is away from your tax home and it's overnight or long enough to require sleep or rest. So if you're having to, like, let's just say that, remember there was a case where the gentleman wore clothing and in the afternoon before, I think it was a TV anchor case, there's actually several of them, and he would have to change his shirt. And he would say, I need to freshen up. And the court said, hey, it's not that uncommon that people freshen up in the afternoon. They might wear clothing. You don't get to write it off just because of that. But if you're traveling and I have to stay at a hotel or I need to sleep, then you can write off your cleaning expenses. And it's not just dry cleaning, it's laundry. If you have to get something pressed or steamed, if you're sending it to the hotel laundry services, all of those become deductible expenses. So, let's just say that you go on a conference. Let's say I'm going to one of our conferences. You come out to Anderson's tax and asset protection workshop, right? And you come into the live workshop. You're gonna be out there for 3 or 4 days. Can I write off my expense for my dry cleaning and laundry? Yes. Even if you come home, if the clothes you were wearing need to be cleaned, you're writing them off. So the easiest one is if you actually do it at the location. So I'm going to a conference, I'm going to Orlando or Las Vegas, and I want to make sure everything's dry cleaned and looking snazzy for when I get home to make it clean again. Yes, it is deductible as a necessary travel expense under Section 162, traveling away from home in the pursuit of a trade or business. Then you can. All right, shifting gears. Now we're going to talk about advertising and all these goons out there that say, just put your name of your business on the inside of your suit. You can write it off. I actually heard that from a guy, and I just sat there and said, what the heck? Like, there's a few people out there that really love to say this stuff. And it's like, you're going to get audited and you're going to get all your clients audited, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, this guy's teaching it and he's doing all their taxes. And they're just going to say, give me all your clients. They're all going to get tased, right? If you embroider your logo onto the inside of a suit, or even if it's just something up here, it doesn't change the nature of the clothing if it could be used for personal use. That's the thing. So placing a logo on a suit does not make it automatically deductible, right? The IRS and the tax courts look beyond that, and they focus on whether the clothing is adaptable to general use. But they will allow the deduction if the logo is large, visible, and more importantly, commercially driven. And the clothing is actually used for advertising and brand promotion. So think polos that everybody wears when they're representing their company on the road. You go to these places and they all got the red polo shirt on, or whatever the color of the day is, and it has their company, ABC Inc. Yeah, the primary purpose of that is for uniformity and to create awareness. So if you do the polo shirts, yeah, the courts are fine with that. I do this suit, but I stick my logo in here. I'm sorry, that's not commercially driven. That is simply a sham. I am just trying to make it deductible, and I should not be doing that. You are not going to win that question. So if the item is used for, like, let's say it's stage wear branding if it was me, and I sat there and I said it's Toby's YouTube channel, Toby's YouTube channel, and I was right across there, and I had everybody wear the same type of clothing. I could even do this with the suit, right? This is the reason we all wear a gold jacket. Remember, Century 21 used to wear the gold jackets. That was advertising. They were making sure everybody knew who they were. So let's say that I picked a green jacket with a big dollar sign and it said Toby's YouTube channel. Yeah, if I made everybody do that, and then anybody came on my channel, you had to wear the green jacket, right? Yeah, that would be primarily driven by the commercial, the branding of the enterprise, I would be able to write that off. If I just said, hey, wear a suit and look good, not deductible, not deductible. So now to make this even stronger, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're branding, you're not just wearing it around. It's not like you're wearing it every day. If you're wearing it every day, it's to promote the business. But if you just like it, like you have a tiny little logo, maybe it's on the collar or something, and somebody's like, "What is that?" No, it's nothing. Like it has to be commercially driven to create awareness of your brand. If you're just doing it for the tax deduction, you're not going to win. So generally speaking, it is not deductible unless it's not adaptable to personal use. Like just imagine wearing whatever it is that has your logo all over it, going out in a personal setting. Like you'd probably be a little embarrassed if somebody said, popcorn city, and you got a big old logo on your back, and it's pink shirt or whatever that's their colors of Popcorn City, and you're running around out there. You probably wouldn't really want to wear that personally, right? You're doing it to promote your business, and it's definitely something that's required by your employer. Hey, when we go to these events, you got to wear these. We're going out. We're going to push. We're going to create awareness for the brand. Yeah, then that's deductible. And I love putting my logo on things like pens and other things, but make no bones about it. The intent is to create awareness of the brand. If I'm doing that with t-shirts, polos, towels, whatever, hats, water cups or whatever, I'm doing it to promote the business. I'm not doing it because I'm taking something like a suit and saying, boy, I really want to make it deductible. That doesn't work that way. My motivation has to be to promote. And if that's the case, it will work. If that's not the case, then you're going to be like all these people out there who are just, they're making stuff up. They end up getting burned in tax court. Again, we have a bunch of TV anchors in tax court. We have a bunch of high fashion people that said, boy, I wouldn't have bought it, but for that my job makes me wear nice clothing. That doesn't work at all. There are rules out there and you got to follow them. And if you follow them, you'll get the benefit. If you don't, you're not going to get the deduction. Hey guys, put down the craziest thing you've ever heard in the comments about what is something's deductible. I'll see if I can respond to all of them. But if you've ever heard that something is deductible because of, hey, I put a logo on it, give me the item. Or if you've ever, if you have people out there that you've heard from that are the internet folks, the TikTokers and stuff, share with me some of the crazy stuff you hear. If you can find ones on this is funny. I know of 2 or 3 that I've seen where I'm like, holy cow, this guy's saying that out loud. He's going to get tased, right? But if you know of any of those, put those down in the comments below. Share and subscribe. And if you can, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys later.